Last week, we focused on dialogue's relevancy to the world building and characterization, which, for the most part, held very well, especially in the foreshadowing of certain lines. Of course, with episode 3's new information, the nature of the dream world is slowly being expanded, and it's a lot more lucid and fluid than I thought. It's a really strong way to slowly build the world. But this episode had a particular focus on a theme I'd like to talk about: resistance. Rather than discussing craft, I want to dial it back to a more classic discussion of a single theme. This show has a great breadth of topics to analyze, each very rich and important. However, the theme I found most interesting for how this episode operates is this idea of resistance that we see from the new protector, Rika. During this episode, we learn Rika's backstory and who she's trying to save: Chami, one of her fans during her idle days. It quickly turns into a depressing tale of the influence and dangers of parasocial relationships, with Rika learning firsthand the power imbalance she possessed. It's here where she develops this resistance and then sustains it through the majority of this episode. Resistance in this case is resistance in telling the truth, and resistance in being genuine with what she's feeling. I imagine it as a protective layer that the words create to shield her core emotions. For Rika, this is whenever she comments about appearances and sidesteps trying to make genuine connections with others. The first moment of resistance Rika gives is at the very beginning. After defeating the Wonder Killer, she walks up to the Chami statue and gives very rude remarks, calling her sweaty and gross, along with being a fatty. Things you probably wouldn't say to a friend in sincerity. These are also the words that led Chami to the state she's in. It wouldn't make sense for her to actually be mean, but I see this repetition as a means for Rika to remember the situation, and as a way to protect her feelings about what she did. Instead of being truthful and admitting she was wrong and having to confront her directly, she's deflecting. It's protecting herself. It's resisting the truth. If Rika were to be nice and not use these disparaging terms, it would probably be close to what she's actually feeling. I don't think she cares about how Chami looks, but by using those terms, she can play into this narrative she made and put distance between them, even though she's out there fighting for her. It's a resistance that's double-edged. A resistance to the truth, a resistance that although acknowledges what she says, doesn't acknowledge the dangers of it. Even more so, this resistance is being adopted in her daily interactions. The first time she meets Ai, she fixates on her eye colors, but I think this is harmless. During Ai and Rika's hospital visit to Neru, however, the comments on appearance get a bit more loaded. When Rika starts talking about her idle days, she makes the comment that their group broke up and cites the other members as being too ugly for the reason. We don't have all of the information, but I'm about 100% sure that wasn't the reason they disbanded. Again, resistance, refusal of the truth, using twisted words to hide and protect herself, even if it does come off as superficial. More instances of this happen when Rika visits Ai's home. She makes the comment of viewing Chami as a wallet and saying it would be too embarrassing to be her actual friend due to her looks. Again, all lies, all words twisted to give resistance to the truth, so that Rika doesn't have to outright acknowledge or expose her feelings. If Rika were to call Chami a friend and didn't objectify her, she would be facing the harsh truth of what happened. She would have to accept that her actions caused so much pain. But if she just dismisses it and shoves it aside, if she uses the same harsh admonishing words to deflect, she doesn't necessarily have to accept anything. She can avoid the issue for as long as she wants, even if it might hurt her later. And that's what she does, holding true to her resistance. However, this episode does a lot more than just show us this resistance at work and how Rika relies on it through basically all of her interactions, but we also get to see the effects of that resistance breaking apart. Ai and Rika eventually synchronize into the same dream and begin fighting the Wonder Puppets until they're pushed towards a lighthouse. This is where we get close to Rika's true feelings. I say we get close to because I'm sure there are some details she hasn't fully explained and things she still needs to confront. But this is where the resistance that has been so strong throughout the episode gets less resilient and is what makes her reveal so powerful. Rika has been protective and resistant to the truth, and when she's being genuine here, it's not only a shock, but a heartwarming moment of letting herself confront what she has been trying to avoid. She admits that she was an unpopular idol. No flair, no skirting around the issue or bringing up appearances, but despite her unpopularity, she received relentless support from Chiemi, who she describes again with no prejudice or animosity towards her appearance. To Rika's true feelings, it didn't matter what Chiemi looked like, and her lack of resistance makes this moment so potent. She's now facing this issue head on without being coy. This is the most direct Rika has been this episode, and she affirms this when saying, "I didn't want that," when the topic of obsessive fans finding any means necessary to give support is brought up. Of course, it is also within this same breath we get the lie she made to protect Chiemi, this resistance to allow what she was seeing to continue. Here, the words that Rika has been using all throughout the episode, the resistance that she showed to protect herself and to form this distance between people, is shown at its inception. She tells Chiemi off, and it works. She resists her fans' unwavering, obsessive support. But again, this is her telling it in flashback. The fact that she's admitting this to the audience, to Ai, tells us a lot about her character, and about the power Ai has being able to whittle away in Rika's powerful resistance. It was at that moment I started to really understand Rika to a certain extent. I think the show frames her as insufferable on purpose, and forces the audience to resist liking Rika as a person. But here, when Rika sees Chiemi at the surface, she says a line that recontextualizes who she is. She says, "She was skin and bones, like a mummy. I couldn't forget her if I wanted to. This isn't Chiemi." This line parallels and juxtaposes how she claimed to hate people on appearance. In fact, she doesn't hate on appearance, but resists admitting that truth to protect herself and to create this emotional layer. Rika isn't fixated on appearance because she's vain, it's because she used it to traumatize someone, unaware of the power dynamic she had. She could care less about someone's appearance. In fact, the way she reminisces about Chiemi hints that she would rather Chiemi look like who she was before, because again, Rika really didn't care if she was overweight or anything. Of course, on a day-to-day basis, she can't admit her feelings. It's hard for her to admit she made such a person suffer this much. So she resists. She resists everything about herself, and through this resistance, she creates another persona. Of course, we haven't actually experienced the end of Rika's story. This week ended off on a cliffhanger, and we have a lot more of her to come, I'm sure. But from how they've characterized her so far, from how all of her words seem to be contradictions of how she is, I'm starting to come around to her. They did a great job making her out to be this horrible person, and yet she's just holding pain and trying her best to shield herself in this twisted way. I'm excited to see how she develops next.